All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Adafruit CircuitPython weekly for October 30th? Question mark. Um, I'm Scott. I'm one of the two main developers on CircuitPython for Adafruit. CircuitPython is a version of MicroPython that is geared towards beginners and getting people ramped up programming really, really quickly. We do this weekly voice chat through the Adafruit Discord server every week. There's a video of it in case there's any chatting that happens during it, available on YouTube through the Discord channel. Has a pinned notification for it. If you're interested in joining, it happens on our Discord, which is adafru, adafru.it/discord. Happens at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, and all of the other corresponding times in the world, which I will not list off. So the general format of this is we'll start with a state of CircuitPython, which is just a quick overview I'll do and around stats and stuff. And then we'll do hug reports from everybody in the channel who wants to do it. Hug reports are thank yous to people for doing stuff. And then we'll do another round through the list of status updates. During the status updates, if you have larger discussions you want to have, we'll do those at the end. And then at the end, we'll circle back and do any of the kind of like more free-form discussion that we want to do. The idea being that the most important stuff comes first, so people don't have to listen to the whole thing necessarily. I'm just going to triple check that my recording is going, which it is. So state of CircuitPython, this is the second week that I've done it. I just took a look at the GitHub pulse again. 13 pull requests merged from 5 committers, which is cool. On the issues side, we had 2 issues closed by 1 person and 9 opened by 7 different people. So we're definitely increasing in the number of issues we have. So if anybody knows of issues that are open but don't need to be, basically if things got fixed but they're still open, please close them or ping me to have them closed. 2.1 is our latest release, and it's been over a week, so we've had a full week of downloads since the 5 days we had from last week's State of CircuitPython. I pulled the numbers again. Trinket M0 is up to 101, which is 52 downloads in the last week. Circuit Playground Express is up to 109, 73 over the last week. Feather Huzzah got 22 more this week. Gemma M0 got 22 more. Feather M0 Express got 32 more. Metro M0 got 19 more. Feather M0 Basic got 8 more. Adalogger also got 8 more. And Arduino Zero got 7 more. For a total of 464 downloads, up 250 from last week. Overall, that means that the top 2 boards for us are still kind of Trinket M0 and Circuit Playground Express. So that's kind of what our focus should be on, which is not surprising given that Trinkets and Gemmas are being given away with orders as well. So that's the state of CircuitPython. Anybody else have anything quick? All right.
Just a random thing. Would it make sense to put the state of CircuitPython stuff at the end or towards, maybe after status updates and things? Just because, like you mentioned, if you want to put the more important things first, so if someone's like kind of tuning in, numbers are super important, I think, but I don't know if it makes sense to put them at the end. So if things run long, then that's kind of at the tail.
Yeah, I was okay putting it at the start just because it's super quick. But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't take a ton of time, but just random thought.
Yeah, we could play around with it, but we're 4 minutes in, so I think it's okay to leave it there. And if there's stuff that's maybe the download counts are a little excessive, so we can play around with what we think is important to go there. So yeah, let's keep thinking about it. Okay, hug reports. I'll start and then we'll go down the list. I wanted to just give a shout out to everybody who has an M4, a Metro M4 for testing. You all have been awesome getting your J-Link stuff going, testing things. I've gotten used to being able to just be like, hey, who's around and wants to test something, which is super fun. And also thank you to everybody for testing the Arduino stuff as well. We want that to be solid too. Wanted to shout out to Deshipu Radomir, who didn't make it today, but he's been super helpful both in CircuitPython and Project Help on Discord, helping a lot of people. And he's based in Europe, so he's helpful when some of us are still asleep or vice versa. And lastly, to Lady Ada for all the drivers and code reviews that she's been doing. She rocked a bunch of stuff this weekend, so that's been awesome as well. Tony, do you have any hug reports?
Nothing on my end.
All right, Carter. I can't hear you anymore, Carter.
I didn't hear anything either, unfortunately.
Me neither. Yeah.
Yeah. He totally mic tested earlier and it worked okay.
Okay, now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm still fiddling with this, getting all this to work through the web browser.
Right.
Just got to hang up and reconnect to hear people and to get my mic to work, it seems like.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a few hug reports for helping me get my M4 up and going. So Huka Zana, however you say his name, he's on. Why isn't he joining these meetings?
He's at work.
Okay. He shared his OneNotes, which I think are cool. It'd be nice to consolidate all this. I think somewhere he's got something going. If we want to do something else somewhere, that'd be kind of cool. And then Katney also for giving me a bootloader that worked and walking me through the bits and pieces. So that was cool for getting me up to speed on my M4.
Nice. Sorry for the keyboard noise. I'm gonna actually try to take notes on this. Dan?
Just repeat about the M4 helpers, and also, and not just M4, but sort of general 3.0 help, because we've been having a lot of trouble with USB stuff, and it would be very helpful to have everybody's feedback on that.
Nice. Okay, Jerry?
Yeah, just again, a shout out to everybody again on the M4 side. It's been fun to watch and participate and play with it and just watch the evolution, and a special shout out to Dan too for fixing that problems. The problems are making huge progress anyway with the problems with the USB stuff. It did get a little scary for a while when everything started to heat up. So it's really been been nice. And also just a quick shout to Dave Astells. He's not on, but I did supersize one of my M0 Expresses, and it's a lot of fun to have the extra room. And if anybody, I've got a couple of spare chips. If anybody else wants to do that, doesn't want to go buy them from DigiKey, send me a personal message with an address. I'll be happy to stick on an envelope. They're small.
Awesome.
So.
Jay Ramsdale, do you have a mic? Do you have any hug reports?
Yeah, looks like it works.
Sweet.
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just a chicken here, but thank you all for your efforts.
I put it in the notes. He's a chicken. Awesome, Katney.
That's a Scrum reference for anyone who doesn't know that.
I do not know that.
Hi. I want to same thing. Hug for everyone who's working with the M4. We've all run into issues, and regardless of what level all of us were at, we all seem to be able to step up and help. It's been both frustrating at times, but always seems to work out really well in the end. Carter for teaching me about dictionaries. That was something I didn't know, and he spent quite a lot of time explaining to me places and uses and finding me examples and that kind of thing. So that was really great. Thank you.
Awesome. Mr. McWethy.
All I can say is I'm up and running. Thanks for your help. That's it.
Cool. Sedacious. Hug report to Scott for helping me getting ASF4 code flashed and for putting in work to get my not so ancient Mac working with M4. And yes, I want to continue on that. I have stuff I want to try with you when you have time to get the not so ancient Mac happy with our USB stuff. All right, that's hug reports. And I was thinking maybe I'll try to do a blog post. That's why I'm trying to take notes at the same time. Okay, status update. This is a chance for us to just say like what happened, what we did, and make notes of anything that's going to be a longer discussion we have at the end. So I merged in a newer MicroPython last week, gearing up for 1.9.3 as the base for our 3x branch. It's not actually tagged upstream as far as I know yet, so we'll keep pulling from MicroPython until it is. The reason we did that is because we could pull in the NRF52 code. K-Town, Kevin Townsend, is kind of our Bluetooth guru for Adafruit, and he's going to start looking at getting the NRF52 supported in CircuitPython by building off of the awesome work that Glenn and Tralamaza, I think, did for upstream MicroPython. So that's in master now, which is cool. I'd spent a lot of time fixing USB, getting descriptors changed and figuring out like exactly where they needed to be fixed. I'm doing a lot of that. Still working with Sedacious a bit to get CDC working for them, and Dan has still been seeing issues with CDC resetting every 30 seconds, I think. So I will be looking at that this week. Once I do that, I kind of want to circle back on Rosie a little bit and get it going so that we can start writing tests as we add support for built-in modules. So that'll be really good. And I'm also probably going to stay in the USB vein for a little while because we want to add support for multimedia keys, keyboard emulation. So looking to do custom USB functionality based on boot.py. So in boot.py, you'd be able to say like, hey, I want to be a multimedia keyboard, and it would actually do that for you. Right now, it's kind of just statically your keyboard and a mouse, even if you're never going to pretend to be a mouse, that sort of thing. And then the things that I want to discuss a little bit later, just to kind of preload it in your brain. Some people have been using write value in SPY's read into method, and just a heads up that that's weird, and we should point people to other ways of doing it. I want to talk a little bit about PyCon 2018, and also more about version tracking of all the libraries that we have coming, and how we can make it easy to update. So we'll talk about that later. For now, we'll do the rundown on the list. Tony, where are you at?
Oh, hey, yeah. Actually, just some feedback too. Those are super interesting discussions, and I'm just kind of worried that because I have a 12 p.m. that I have to like run to. So if the status stuff goes super long, especially like the library version, and I'd love to kind of get an idea of what we're thinking about for that.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get through this kind of fast to talk about some of that stuff. But anyways, yeah. So just let's see. Last week I did a bunch of updates to some of the old guides on the infrared remote, the TMP36, the DHT, the analog LED strips, basically like CircuitPython versions of all that stuff.
Nice.
So there's a few that I'm doing some changes on right now. And then there's a whole list of other things that are like the next guides kind of on deck. I haven't done much with the I2C stuff. I've been kind of letting the dust settle with the M4 things. It looks like there's some really cool progress with it. So maybe later this week I'll give it a shot and load up the latest build and see how it's going.
Okay.
And then I tried out the 2.1 firmware on one of my boards that sometimes had run into the battery issues and things. I haven't had any issues yet, but I haven't really run them down all the way. I think in the next couple of days, I'll probably have some light projects running for a little bit longer. So I'll see. But so far, fingers crossed, at least I haven't seen any like Circuit Playground Express resetting itself.
Great. Well, that's good news, and keep us posted. All right, Carter.
Yeah, so the two things I've been still having in the mix, the TSL light sensor one.
Yep.
That one has progressed to the point where I've made the pull request to get it into the bundle.
Okay.
And then there's this interesting 2-layer thing to do it where you're working on the repo, then you make the PR to the bundle to get that repo into the bundle. what happened was Lemore actually chimed in on, on the PR to the bundle and said, oh, let's change this, and then actually did some issues back in the repo
Yeah.
for that. And it's like, and I got those rolled in. So how do you now progress do you redo a PR to the bundle to get the stuff in, or is it once it's in the bundle, it's already wired in and any updates to the original repo?
Once you are in the bundle, you just need to tag a new release and then have somebody update the contents of the bundle. So there's just a script that says like update submodules, and that will update everything to the latest release on all the individual repos.
So it sounds like the PR to get into the bundle is kind of a one-off.
Yes.
And then you're kind of wired in, and then you can just work on the original repo and it'll all happen.
Yes.
Okay.
But make sure that you do a release on the original repo. Otherwise, it won't get pulled automatically.
Okay. Is that all documented in the read the doc somewhere? I should go read up on that.
I'm not sure. It should be.
Okay. If not, we should add it.
Yes.
Because I haven't gotten to that step yet. Okay, so that's where I'm at with that light sensor one. So hopefully it's getting close to being done.
Cool.
And the other one with the ADC, I think, Scott, I'm just waiting for you to take a look at my latest refactoring to see if you're cool with with all of that, if it's going in the right direction still.
Okay, I thought I looked at it. Let's chat afterwards. We'll make sure we get on the same page.
Okay, and then a third one, which I may do, you submitted an issue for wanting to refactor the one wire code.
Yep.
It exists in some repo. You want it to be like a one wire device.
Yep.
And I've kind of started on that. So my question for you is how time critical is that?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not time critical. So if you could pick that up, that'd be awesome.
Well, yeah, I was hoping to get on to it next, like here in the next few days or so, but now I kind of need to do something else. So I want to keep chipping away at it. It's just, it'll kind of slow down, but if it's not time critical, that seems fine.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay.
I don't know any reason that is critical.
Well, cool. And that's where I'm at with status.
Cool, thank you. All right, Dan.
Okay, so after like almost a week ago in the evening, I've just been, every time there's sort of a significant amount of stuff in 2.x, I try to move it back into master. So I merged in all the 2.1 changes last Monday evening. And then I spent a while late last week fixing this problem of main.py not being interruptible in 3.0. So I fixed that. And there's a lot of back and forth about what works and what doesn't work. I'm not even sure, the business about it heating up. I think that partly was I put in some changes and Scott put in some, modified them. So that's sort of a joint effort there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started very slightly looking at actually putting Bus.io into 3.0. But I didn't do a lot of work over the weekend. And right now I want to fix the problem. The fix that went into post 2.1.0 about buffer size on Bus.io, which breaks a bunch of things. So I'm debugging that to see whether we can allow buffer size 0 anyway, because there's so much code that depends on that in various places. So I have a test case, and I'm just about to get into GDB, but I haven't done that yet. Okay. So that's what I'm working on right now, and then I'll go back to Bus.io again. Okay. So that's it.
Cool. Everybody's chomping at the bit for Bus.io.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry.
Yeah, I spent some time working on trying to find workarounds for the 2x problem with the I2C and SPI. So I do have if anyone does run into the problem, and anyone who downloads the 2x version will, I have a quick workaround that fixes the I2C side, but and I don't know if it affects all SPI devices or drivers, but it certainly affects the RGB. I haven't tried the SD card one yet, so I just haven't gotten back to that. But I know the RGB driver fails And I think all I2C drivers that I have won't run right now
Yeah.
without a fix.
Thanks for being the guinea pig on that, Jerry.
Yeah, and it's again, none of it's critical for me, and I2C was easy to make a workaround, but I couldn't quite figure out the SPI side, so
okay,
be looking forward to a fix on that. I also finally fired up my NR52 board and NRF52, and it's a lot of fun. Just starting to play with it and play with the SDK that came with it. So looking forward to when that comes online as a usable device with CircuitPython.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
Yeah, yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Jay Ramsdale, you have any update on projects you're doing, that sort of thing?
Sorry, just finding my unmute here.
No worries.
No, I did a recent project with CircuitPython, but right now I'm working on Halloween costumes. Don't involve it, so I'll get back to it later.
Yeah, you don't have much time.
Yep, I know. Down to the wire.
Cool. Well, thanks for hopping in, Katney.
Yeah. So obviously we've been doing a lot with the M4 and testing that. I still need to do pixel brightness, and I still will need help with that, but I know you guys were slammed, and since it's not super time critical, I don't think I was just holding off on that. And I've been working on the Welcome to the Community guide.
Cool.
So that we can get that put in and we can get people to us when all of those downloads of CircuitPython finally get loaded on the boards of people who just got them.
Right.
And then we'll be ready for that. So that's what I have.
Cool. Well, thanks for working on that. I'm excited for it. Mr. McWethy.
I've basically been trying to, working with my M4 board and also my older CPX board and my Metro M0s board. And I was curious about the state of, the bootloaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not sure what's supposed to work now and what's not supposed to work. And whether or not I have a typical system or if I'm not, I should be reporting something. So anybody?
So I believe that the UF2 bootloader that I have checked into Adafruit UF2 SAMD21 and can give people binaries for. I don't know of any outstanding issues with it. I think should just work.
So that would be for the older boards, right?
No, I updated it for the M4 as well.
So I should be able to mount it or double click my reset button and it should come up with a drive.
Yeah.
And I should be able to drop something into it.
Yeah, it should be the Metro M4 boot drive.
Okay. All right.
But if you may not have that so get it from me if you don't.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do we have to do the bootloader now still through J-Link, or can the bootloader update itself with the new bootloader, the UF2?
I do. We could try it. The J-Link is there in case we screwed up. But right. I do have a self-updating script for the bootloader if you want to try it. It's just I was okay with you loading it yourself just as practice.
Yeah, that's fine. Just curious.
But it sounds like the normal way would be use the J-Link, right? So that's something I have to learn how to do. Okay.
No. Like, I'm confident enough that you should just try it without the J-Link first. It's just that it's still early enough. Like, we have the 10 of us or whatever that are testing it. Like, if there's a bug, then we may need to fall back to the J-Link.
Okay.
But I don't know of any bugs.
What I'm going to do is just try what I have, and I'll put it out there in Discord, and maybe someone can help me then. That sounds good.
We can do that.
That's it. Oh, I am looking for something to do, and I'm just looking at this issues thing, so I might pick something out of there. So.
Yeah, please do. Your help would be welcome.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Scott, does the updater does it set the boot prot fuses, or does it not?
It does. That's why I was trying to avoid it.
Okay, all right.
But I did figure out how to disable the M4 chip and the M0 chip can say like, hey, protect this area of flash so you don't accidentally overwrite it. And the self-updater script temporarily turns that off and then re-enables it. So it's a little bit more challenging. If you've run that before, it's a little bit more challenging to use GDB to fix the bootloader if it's screwed up, but it's not impossible. That's what Dan's talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Also, a quick question: where are the bootloader binaries?
You have to ask me nicely. I think we don't have Travis building it, as far as I know. So.
Okay, so getting them from you is the process currently. That's fine. Just
it is
wanted to
currently,
check.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, Sedacious. I've been dorking around with my LED matrix and refound the Adafruit graphics Arduino library. Would it be worth porting? If so, would it make sense to do it as pure CircuitPython or try to leave some parts in C? Otherwise, doing ASF4 tomfoolery, trying to become more familiar with the framework. With luck, I'll be able to work on simpler CircuitPython commits before too long. Tony, do you want to answer this? I don't actually know what the GFX library does.
Let's see. Sorry, I was looking at something else real fast.
Is it similar to the RGB display stuff you did?
So check out the guide. I actually did a port of the GFX library. So here's the tricky thing. So go to learn.adafruit.com/category, either CircuitPython or MicroPython. It's under both. There's basically a drawing graphics on graphics display guide. So the tricky thing is in MicroPython, there's a frame buffer module which implements things like line drawing and rectangle drawing and circle drawing. Actually, I don't know if they have circle drawing in that one yet, but that has all the C implementations that are fast and really easy to do. It's like what Radomir is using to do his little video game console, like sprites and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But on like the M0 boards, the basic ones, we don't have the flash space to store that library. So we cut out the frame buffer module. But then I made a pure Python implementation that does like Bressingham's line drawing algorithm, the circle drawing algorithms and stuff. And it does it all in Python code. So you can load it as an MPY file. And there's enough space to load it as MPY. The tricky thing is that it's real slow when it's running as Python code. So, you draw a circle and you can just watch kind of pixel by pixel, as it goes. So, I think we're always going to have that trade-off, unfortunately, because there's, you have to make the call of, do you put it into the C firmware or do you put it as an external module, which won't have as much performance. So I kind of like the idea of having both as an option so that, if you really absolutely need some drawing stuff and you're out of firmware space, but you've still got some space on your file system, you can load the MPY. And if you're just doing like a basic user interface, the speed doesn't matter as much.
Right.
You're certainly not going to write like an arcade game with all Python powered graphics. Whereas when you do want to write that arcade game, then you're going to need some actual performance from it.
Right.
And so you either need like a custom build or maybe a bigger board. Like the ESP right now has, a little more full featured or more memory available for it. And then the M4 board probably in the future is going to be more interesting for it. So long story short is, it's actually already been ported. Check out learn.adafruit.com/category MicroPython or CircuitPython and look for the, I forget the exact name. It's like drawing graphics, I remember, is in the title. And basically, I think I showed, you plug in a pixel drawing function, so it works with anything.
Right.
Like you could work with a NeoPixel grid. You could work with CharliePlex display, LCDs, anything. So
perfect. All right. Well, that's the best solution, is that it's already been ported. And I know Radomir's really pushing the boundaries of it, so I'm excited to see what he comes up with. Okay, Tony, you wanted to talk about the versioning first?
Oh yeah, so I was just kind of curious what you were thinking, or what versioning looks like, because I just have some general kind of thoughts on things to think about with it. So I don't know. I was curious if you had like some topics or something to kind of start discussion with it.
Yeah, it was just I just had my meeting with Phil and Limor, and we were discussing. Limor's really concerned that we don't have a great way to manage libraries right now, and she's adding tons and tons, and other people are adding tons and tons. So I think that we'll probably end up hoping for a Mu integration at some point to do it automatically. So
my thought too, right?
Yeah. So I think it kind of stemmed around this. We have this new button in the Learn guide where you can give it a regex of the GitHub resource, and right now, like the names for the bundles have the version of CircuitPython in it. So we were talking about kind of inverting it, where instead of releasing 3 zips for like 1x, 2x, 3x, we would do one zip file that would have subdirectories for the 3 instead. That way the Learn guide can link to just one zip forevermore that covers everything. And then the other question that we had was like, okay, so if we want Mu to do auto updating for us, and we have this world where trinkets and gemmas don't have everything on board, how does Mu know what to update and what needs updating, what doesn't need updating, basically?
Yeah, right. And so, and one tricky thing, at least my thought with versioning is, it's a little bit hard, I think, for people to update things. It's easy right now, but it's going to be hard because just dragging and dropping like a new set of libraries doesn't handle the case of I removed a file. Like, let's say I updated a library, I simplified the interface, and I got rid of, a .mpy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so the drag and drop case kind of falls down there, unfortunately, where it's like, it's not doing a proper rsync or merge of
Right.
The contents of those. And you can get around that by just saying like, okay, first delete the old folder, then drag the new one on there. And that can be baked into whatever scripts or whatever logic. So I think that's a super important thing for, file-based updates of the libraries, is to get people into the habit of understanding that you actually need to delete everything and copy new, because it's just going to cause chaos when someone drags a new library over that's, has an old version that doesn't get updated because the file was renamed or whatever. And then it's like,
Right.
Maybe it works or whatever. So that's one painful thing. But yeah, I totally agree that I think like long-term people are still going to find value from the Arduino style of, there's a nice little menu, you can search for things, you can find libraries, and then like you click a button and it just installs. For that to work, I would say that you probably need to think a bit about, how do we interrogate a Python board and figure out what libraries are there?
Right.
So in normal desktop Python, there are very specific conventions. There's this site packages folder. I mean, it differs based on each implementation of Python, but
Right.
There's a specific place where they put all their libraries. And there's actually a Python module, I think, that lets you like interact with all the modules and like list all the modules and things. So that might be interesting to think about, to see like, is there a way, because like step one of any kind of a tool or process that's going to manage your libraries is it needs to figure out what's on the board. And I think like just reading file names and trying to parse versions out of there, it'll get you 80% of the way, but like you're going to run into weird issues, and like you're going to be restricted by the file system. And so Python already has a big concept of like, modules are objects and they have all kinds of metadata. There's all that setup.py stuff, and they waffle a lot back and forth between whether they like that or not. But, there is a bunch of metadata there. So that would be kind of my thought, is figure out what's the metadata for libraries, and then just the components fall into place of like, okay, what are the operations we need for libraries? We need to add one, we need to remove one, we need to update one. And then it's, but once you have a good database of all that library state, it's, you're just manipulating that database at that point. For it. So
yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea of having it separate from the files themselves, because then you can't do like just using you can't just use a like Finder or whatever. Like you can't just like drag files to get different things updated, because then your database is out of date.
Yeah, right. I agree. Totally. Like that's part of the magic, is that like, hey, if I make a random MPY, I can just drag it on and it's there. So, yeah.
So, but maybe one thing I was thinking about was the ability of like, when we do a bundle build, we actually put a prefix on every file before we MPy it, so we actually get like the version number baked in using the like dunder version value in the package.
Yeah, right. I guess, I don't know, that then maybe what's the use case for when you use that version? I guess you
Right.
can just assume, like, if your update logic, like, parse out the first number or whatever. It might be interesting that, like, do you start restricting what a version can be at that point? Like, it can only be valid file system characters. You can't have a space in it, that type of stuff, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole
It's
spec for
trickier,
that, but
unfortunately.
yeah, I mean I like the Semver stuff. I would have it done by the build so that it's just the git tag. Because I hate having the version separate in a file. Like,
Tags are interesting though, because those are like 64 characters or something sometimes. So I mean, I just worry, like, you start bumping up against the 255 character limit, which it's not a limit on Windows anymore, but it is kind of like on Windows.
What limit are you talking about?
Windows, there's a path limit of 255 characters. It's not a file name limit,
Right.
but if you have any path on your file system where, like, the directories and things are more than 255, at least on up till 7, I think they finally fixed it in 10. It causes all this havoc in the Node.js world because they have the npm modules subfolders. But so it gets hard. Like, basically, my takeaway is, like, really, really, really try to avoid long file names wherever possible, even though it is 2017 and, like, computers support it.
Well, we are using FAT12.
Right. And so, like, I'm pretty sure that at some point, if every, like, library file name is going to have, no matter what, like a 32 character starting kind of.
Yeah, I wasn't proposing putting it in the file name. I was thinking like in the file itself, you would have like a global, like, __ version _ equals the tag.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
That totally could be doable, right? Because I wouldn't want to put that in a file name though. Because
no, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what. Anybody have other comments about managing libraries and stuff? Crickets.
Just be to maybe we should enumerate somewhere, like, what are the use cases for the libraries, just so we all can kind of have some common ground of, like, what problems are we trying to solve here, because, like, the world works today, but it'd be good to enumerate, like, okay, what are the problems we have right now, like library updates. Maybe it's not intuitive, or difficult for things, like the merge case. I think is a definite. It's not maybe an issue yet, but it's gonna be annoying, I've had, for people to hit.
You can't delete files, basically, if you're just dragging and overwriting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You need to know, basically, like, hey, here's the update process, delete and then copy, just to handle that case.
Yeah, and if we have mu do it, that's easy, right?
Yeah, well, and then that's the nice thing is, if we enumerate all these problems, not necessarily problems, but enumerate all these kind of requirements and things, you can just drive those right into mu and just say, okay, here's what we need to implement. Like, this is what this thing should do.
Right.
Do we know if we could? I don't know if the MicroPython world has looked at this at all. I think they've talked about it on and off, but we might
guess if we're just enumerating problems,
check
files.
Wait, hold on,
Dan was
Tony.
talking. Sorry, I need to reload this thing.
Let's wait for Tony to get back.
Sorry, I missed whatever was just said.
Yeah,
I was. Can you hear me? I was just saying that I think they've had some discussions about this kind of stuff in the MicroPython world. Maybe not. They haven't gotten very far, but I think I saw a reference for UPIP, or maybe that was you, Tony, but I can't remember.
Exactly. Yeah, they have the concept. It was mostly more for the Unix port, because basically it would just download and it would throw the libraries into a certain folder. You run that and then copy that folder over to, like, the ESP8266. I haven't checked up on what they're thinking about recently, but I don't know I haven't seen any, like, major things.
Okay.
Yeah, I think their answer is UPIP, but it's not clear to me how that works in a non-connected device. I'm just looking at I'm looking at the file now, and it uses, like, I don't know how it works.
Like, is pip and the PyPy, like, the right place for MicroPython libraries, at least today, or CircuitPython? Because Python packaging has lots of weird quirks and problems sometimes.
Right, like they haven't even really figured it out.
So it kind of feels like we're all on the same page, and that like whatever we do is probably going to be something not necessarily custom for us, but it's just like it doesn't have to be like jammed into the Python ecosystem yet. Like make something that works for everyone using our boards, and then let's figure out kind of how to generalize it and
Cool.
make it.
Do we need to think about a different approach for the non-express boards than from the express boards? Assuming on the express boards, most people just take the bundle and copy the whole thing over. But obviously on the non-express boards, it can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a way to think about a way of externally, maintaining whatever library you want to be able to then maintain, what you want on your local board? That's what I do on my own systems. I have a separate folder for each board, and I maintain what I want in the library for that one, so I can quickly update it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's it is.
I agree with that too. I think it's super important to be able to support those boards and not necessarily require that. Yeah, you have to use the whole bundle for it. And so I think it could come back to just like, add that to the scenarios of, what's the common use cases. So like you've got a whole set of use cases for the express boards where they're probably simpler in that, you just update the bundle and just treat that as your library system, versus then the non-express boards where you've got to pull apart the ones that you want. But that could maybe be simplified if there's like a database or a registry of these are the libraries on your board. Then some tool can just say, okay, update my board. It will go interrogate your board, figure out, oh, you've got the LIS3DH, you've got NeoPixel, whatever.
Right.
I'll just go update those in isolation, grab from the bundle or whatever, and make it work.
Yeah. Maybe if we just pack in like the __ version and the __ like repo or something that's actually just like the Git repo that it comes from. Maybe that's enough for us to have automation on the outside that says, let me just look through this and update anything that you need to update.
I don't know if that would be enough, thinking about it, just because the starting point is how do you find the libraries? You could start searching the file system, but Python libraries are kind of complex. Like it can be a folder with an init.py, or it could be a .mpy, or it could be a .py. And then you need to try and import all those things, which it could work. Like I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work.
Right.
Simplify that potentially.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, just how to make them more discoverable on their own.
Like there is code in Python that says, hey, I ran this import statement. I'm looking for a library. There are certain places I need to look to go find that thing. And so I wonder if maybe that would be a place where seems to be like the true source of here's the state of libraries on this board. So like maybe extending that to have a concept of like, okay, there's not just an import, not necessarily to add a new Python function, but like that could be where this logic kind of lives of, here are some primitive operations you can do against libraries. So like find them all, enumerate all their versions, something like that potentially. And then you could eventually expose Python kind of functions that let you interact with that if you want.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea of just making a module that does that management for you. Let's keep thinking.
The name.
What is it?
Python already. It's oh boy, what is it called? It's in all the setup py stuff. There's like package resources and but so there is some precedent there for Python.
All right. Okay, let's keep thinking that over. We don't have to make any like firm decisions today, but just know that like as we scale to more and more stuff, we need to think about making it easier to discover and manage and up to date, keep things up to date. So the next thing on my list was I've started to see some Arduino users come into CircuitPython and miss transfer for SPI stuff, and somebody somewhere recommended using write value as a way to write a value out before you read something back in, and that's just it's crazy to me. So kind of the way that I think SPI stuff should be done is most of the time you write, or you write 1 byte and then you read any number of bytes after that. So if anybody sees anybody doing SPI stuff and they're not kind of doing that model of like, let me write 1 byte and read the rest of the bytes, either pull me into it or direct them to the SPI device stuff where that's kind of the model. This whole using write value to write that value is not what it's meant for, which is weird.
I agree. Write value is weird, especially on a read function. It's like, okay, that there's obviously some problem with the abstraction here if you're having to add writes to reads. But it does seem like a valid kind of, like that's a core SPI kind of operation, is the sense of, there's a data in and a data outline. And so sometimes you might want to deal with one in isolation, but sometimes you might want not necessarily atomic, but from the API level, it's like, okay, I'm doing both at once because these are separate lines.
Yeah, and we do have an issue for that. Like, we do want to add a transfer.
That makes sense.
A transfer so that you can actually do, like, I'm going to clock this byte out at the same exact time that I read this byte in. But I'm seeing people, and that's why read into has write value. It's actually like, what dummy byte are you sending while you're reading? It's just people are starting to abuse it to actually send data they care about.
Like, maybe the bigger kind of thing is like, people are coming at this without realizing that they're talking to a SPI device that doesn't have a need for this hardcore atomic read and write.
Right.
And that it's just the example code they saw from Arduino or whatever happened to use the transfer function as a, like, write a byte and then read or something kind of example for it. So it's more of like an education kind of thing for people of, hey, here's some good examples. And I think all of our drivers are pretty good about read into and write into and stuff like that. Like, try not to abuse it. So
I'm not sure where it came from.
I think where it came from is Arduino.org. If you look at their examples for the SPI libraries and stuff, there's 10 years of examples there, and so there's all kinds of varying quality of things. Not necessarily, I don't want to say like quality, but just varying options. And, it's unfortunate that if their APIs let you do a bunch of different things, people are going to do a bunch of different things, and then it's confusing which is the right way. So
so this is the heads up of being like, hey, let's all agree this is weird and try to help people to do it in a less weird way. Okay, and then the last thing I have on my list is I wanted to start talking about PyCon 2018 a little bit. PyCon US 2018, I guess I should say. It's in May next year, so it's not soon. It's in Cleveland. And I was just wanting to kind of pull the crowd about who's going to be there and who's interested. It's early enough that we could actually all decide that, like, we want to try to get together. The way PyCon's structured is that they do like a couple days of tutorials before the talks, and then they do like 2 days of talks, and then they do like 4 days of hackathon. And this year we went, it was in Portland, but we kind of skimped on the hackathon side. But I think Kattni and I were talking before, and she mentioned she was going to be there, and that got me thinking of like, do we want to make this a time where we, like, everybody who's involved here actually tries to get out there and we actually do like 4 days of hackathoning. In terms of timeline for CircuitPython, I'm kind of seeing that we're going to be like wrapping up 4.0 / starting 5.0 at that point, which will be like, in my brain, the NRF52 stuff is out, and now we're starting to work on ESP Wi-Fi stuff. So are people interested in doing that? Like, PyCon US is a full week. It's in Ohio in May. Any thoughts?
I think
it's pretty clear when you say a hackathon, you're talking about kind of a dedicated after the main conference, CircuitPython people getting together so we could all be in the same room working on CircuitPython stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be at the same venue as the conference. They actually like set rooms aside for this, so there's a bunch of other Python people doing other open source projects there.
Right.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to at least open it up as an option that, if people want to be there to hack on stuff, like, like say that, hey, here the core people are going to be here, and like maybe, as some prep, here are some different like projects and like all varying different levels of like pull requests and things that people could work on. I think the tricky thing, at least for people that like have 9-to-5 jobs and stuff is it might be a little early for everyone to, commit to say like, oh, I can take 4 days out of the week, 5 months or whatever for this. So I'd be, at least, I don't know, it might be difficult to get someone right now to say, yeah, for sure, I'm going to be there all 4 days. I think if you try to get that, you'll probably see a lot of cancellations, the month before. But like just saying like, hey, we're going to be here and we're going to have all these 4 days and we're going to have all these, potential things for people to work on. And then just, almost like a buffet, like come and work on what you want. And then, spend as little or as much as you can.
And get free hardware. We could bring hardware.
There you go. Right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it up, like you say, Tony, is just like hey, this is a ways away, but let's start thinking about this and kind of deciding if we want to make it happen. I think it'd be super fun. But yeah.
What they call it, remember, yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the things I wanted to discuss. Anybody else have stuff they want to bring up? Lamore was just mentioning in the chat that she's looking at making a Trinket M0 Express with a tiny flash chip, which would be cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it.
Are we at? I guess I missed where we're at in the agenda. Are we in the general section of things?
Yeah. We're just in discussion now.
Okay, cool. Yes, I do have a few things to discuss.
Fire away.
Actually, just one main one. One of the things that came up in the issues that Lady Ada submitted to that light sensor thing I did I think has a more broader scope and worth discussing. She was pointing out the use of const and kind of prefixing everything that's a const with an underscore.
Right.
So it's kind of something that's like, yeah, it makes sense. Go ahead and do it. But then I think we should see if that should be like put in the style guide, and all the guides should kind of line up with that. Because perusing through the guides, I'm kind of seeing it's another thing where it's different through all the guides. Some don't use underscores, some don't even use const, etc.
Yes, I think it should be in the design guide. Honestly, I didn't realize that's what was needed until Dan pointed it out. So, yeah.
And here, let me put a link to the discussion because, Dan chimed in on this discussion.
Right.
And there's so you can ignore most of the initial stuff to the issues because it was pretty boilerplate, like took care of it. But then it segued into a discussion of this whole const thing. And I think the end result there is, I think, something useful to look at.
Other thing, just that because MicroPython tries to be like upstream Python, and so maybe is the bigger problem that const, because they did some work to make const is a thing in Python, if I remember correctly, or I forget. I remember Scott, you raised an issue, and Damien actually added like some special like from future import const thing, right?
I think it's from MicroPython import const.
Okay, right, yeah. But so my kind of thought was, if there's some magic that happens when it's only underscore const, that smells like a weird MicroPythonism to me. And it kind of, my first gut instinct is, oh well, like ultimately, what how do you make this more compatible with real Python? And so if the non-underscore const is already a thing that's potentially compatible with Python, why not just have that do the right thing in the sense of like, compile down into like constants and stuff, or look into that as like a potential, is that the long-term place to go with it? And then maybe short-term, like, okay, well, right now it's more memory efficient to add the underscores and stuff like that.
Well, the strings disappear if the name is underscored.
Oh, shoot, sorry, I got to reload.
Okay. Are you there?
No, sorry.
All right. So if it's memory efficient only if you prefix the name with underscore and it's a const. There's a const call on the right hand side, which right now is only ints. So basically, it's almost like a pound define kind of. Yeah. So I mean, effectively. All right. Not really literally, but so it does save a lot of string space. You could do the same thing with slots. but the const stuff was to save lookups. So, and there's sort of there's no equivalent to that in Python. So I don't know. I'd be kind of reluctant to give it up just because it's not in Python, or it's not in CPython. So, but you could make it so that you could make a fake const that doesn't do anything, right? That's just idempotent. So
right, and that was my issue I had with it, was that they were using const without importing it. And so I pushed Damien to just be like, add this from MicroPython import const, and then when you're using CPython, you can have a MicroPython module that just does a lambda on it.
Yeah, and he was willing to do that, right? So, and I don't know if there's any discussion about this in the regular Python world, but probably they don't care. So,
well, the bigger thing in Python is they're adding type hints and like a concept of like this thing has types, and that then lets you do a lot of optimizations and do things like, oh, these ints are all like, you know, a certain type and they're all the same value. Like it can do optimizations for it. And maybe one day that might come to MicroPython. It wouldn't surprise me.
So they're trying to make Python more like C.
Because, well, you get static analysis also, where you can run a tool that says, hey, you're using this variable in a way that's going to break before you actually like run it and get exceptions and stuff. So, but that's a whole separate thing. Yeah. Okay. So sorry. I guess what was Dan? What was the lookup optimization you were mentioning with const right now?
It substitutes the actual value so that it doesn't do a lookup at runtime.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So there's yeah. So, but then it's just the conditions to trigger that are very specific in that you both have to use the const keyword, has to be an integer, and the name has to be an underscore. It sounds like.
No, the name underscore thing it will not put the name in the dictionary if it starts with an underscore. Only if the name has an assignment from a const.
Right. I think there were two features that were kind of discussed.
I see. Yeah. I see. Right. So there's basically adding underscore means you're not going to add this variable name that you weren't going to use anyways. In the case of a const, which takes up a little more memory for it. Okay. Yeah, that kind of seems like a bug in MicroPython to me. In their const should just naturally do that, I would assume, right? Like, is there any reason to add that variable unless you're doing really wacky, like, you know, you're taking a const?
Yeah, because you want to provide a bunch of consts that people can import. So,
okay.
So that's why the combination of the two is like, not only is this an integer, not only do you want to run optimize this, but you don't even expect people to use it.
Hard. So then that's an interesting thing, because as a library writer, there are a lot of cases where you want your users to have access to, you know, certain like register or const values. Like, you know, when you're setting the accelerometer range, there's a very specific byte you need to pass in. And so typically I'll just add those as globals at the top of the module, so anyone can reference, you know, the accel range, 4G, 2G, whatever, and then it's going to use that. And so I do want those exposed, versus I think what we're getting at here is like, if it's just an internal value that you're only using inside the module, then yeah, here are the best ways to optimize the space and the other usage. And unfortunately, I got to run. I'm out of time, so sorry.
Thanks, Tony.
Super cool. I'd be curious to see the notes or whatever, if you guys make, you know, any decisions or things. So cool.
Yeah, but Tony, hey, check out the link I posted in the chat. There's a good discussion there.
Especially at the end of that GitHub thing, because I made there was some misleading stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, read the whole thing.
So I would say that, like, Carter, you seem to be hitting a lot of the stuff that we need to have in the design guide. So I think this should be covered in the design guide. So if you wanted to add that, that would be epic.
That was basically the last sentence in the thread, is like, hey, this should go in the design guide. Perfect. But I think the first thing is making a decision on what the correct answer is. And I mean, Tony's bringing up a lot of interesting things, and I kind of see it as being an ongoing discussion, and possibly being something like it's higher level decisions need to be made on what the right answer is.
I guess I don't understand what the different options are.
I think again, read the discussion, because I kind of posted some initial examples saying, look, it just does this, and Dan chimed in and said, well, you got to do this and this, and then it finally becomes hidden and protected.
Yeah,
and it kind of sounds like it kind of sounds like Lady Ada was wanting two things: the efficiency, the memory efficiency thing, and then also the hiding thing, kind of a data encapsulation desire.
The hiding thing, there's an outstanding issue in MicroPython for them to implement __ slots __.
Yeah.
So, but that's not implemented yet, and that would solve the hiding thing. Actually,
I can definitely see the desire for memory efficiency given our platforms.
Yeah.
The hiding thing is something I still kind of wrestle with Python, coming from starting in OO and C++. It kind of, you got to just accept Python just doesn't really.
It
seems like the community isn't so concerned about data encapsulation in the Python world.
Right.
The hiding thing doesn't really seem to be super necessary, maybe, in Python.
Yeah, and it's just a convention.
Yeah.
Except you can use slots, this double _ slots thing, to enforce that. So, I mean, I think they're gradually, like, this whole business about type hints and stuff is sort of like they're gradually realizing, like, yeah, it's actually helpful to provide some compile time checking so you don't end up.
That's so funny. It's like they're slowly realizing why, interpreted versus compiled languages have trade-offs, and it's like they're trying to make it a compiled language.
Yeah. Well, when Python came out, nobody expected people to write
Instagram
websites or something. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say for now is, like, we should keep an eye on the type stuff, because the static analysis stuff could give huge wins to MicroPython. But for now, I would say, like, if the value is const, use const regardless. I don't think we'll actually crash right now if you use const without doing the import, but that would be awesome if it did. Because I don't like it when people do the from, or they use const without the from MicroPython import const. I think it should be there for compatibility with CPython. And then as far as the underscore goes, I would say if you don't want to share it with the user of your library, do underscore, and that will also save you the memory. Otherwise, do no underscore at the start and let people see it.
So I'm a little confused, and Dan, maybe you can answer this. What does the memory efficiency? Is it the const, the underscore, or both?
When the combination of the two.
So without the combination of the two, you get no memory savings.
That's right. With the combination,
you get both together. You get both the memory efficiency and the hiding at the same time, essentially.
Right.
I see those as two separate things, but I guess they're all mixed together in that.
Right, and I was mistaken earlier in the bug where I said, oh, when you use underscore, it always hides it, which was just wrong. Okay, so that was just I forgot, but the idea is that, oh, this is really just like as if you wrote that number every place where the word was, where the variable name was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because a lot of it's like you end up with lots of registers and commands and stuff in that pound define use case, essentially, where I was hoping to push us towards more like the register model where you just declare all the registers and you put inline integers there, but we know that has its own challenges.
Right. But I just tried it in the REPL. You can say const without importing it.
Right, in CircuitPython, which is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice to fix. Yeah, I don't know if that gives any more clarity, Carter.
Or no, I think the main thing, Scott, is I don't really think I think these decisions should be made by you and Dan and company.
Well, us.
Because I'm fine with coding in any direction you want.
Be careful what you wish for.
And the trade-offs that are happening under the hood, I think you guys are more savvy on and can really home in on what the best answer is for all of
but
this.
I think you've been really helpful in pushing us to think about like what is best for the user, because I think people who are doing the implementation can sometimes get trapped into what's easy to implement or most efficient to implement when it really should be what's clearest for the people using it. So I think it's good to come from the direction that you are, Carter.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do that. But yeah, I think there's also some under the hood technical things that are going on for this as well. You know, the memory efficiency aspects.
Yeah, but that's gonna matter less and less.
Yeah, it will matter less. It'll matter a lot less with the M4.
Yep.
And I kind of agree with you, but does that mean I can just stop caring about it? Which kind of goes against what the
No, I mean, I think you
what's
should
an
still
issue.
code it this way because it makes it run faster too, because it doesn't do a name lookup. So it's good.
Yeah, I'd say use const everywhere that it makes sense, and then use underscore, like put an underscore before it if you think that people shouldn't have access to it. Like,
Yeah, that's still fine.
yeah.
So
That's kind of just Pep 8-ish also.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's good style to prepend anything that you want to keep private with an underscore.
Right. The user doesn't really need to know all the commands for the character LCDs or something like that. Like, they're not interesting. So,
yeah.
Um,
so it's good policy regardless.
There's a whole other issue here, which this is a meta issue about. You say, oh, it should go in the design guide. So I think we still have this sort of split personality of the document. Some of the documentation is in read the docs. Some of the documentation is in the learn guides.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to get around that in the long run. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about what direction we should go in.
Well, I watched most of a really interesting PyCon talk from last year about documentation, and they demystify it as being one single thing. Like documentation, they claim is 4 different things: tutorials, how-tos, API documentation, one other thing. And I guess
I remember that talk.
Yeah, and my point would be like, it's okay for us to have some things in learn guides, and it's okay to have some things in read the docs. We just need to understand the difference between the two. Where the stuff in guides is like how to do something, or a tutorial, or it's more of a tutorial style. Like in the end, you will have this thing, and then the API documentation is much more lower level of just like, if you want to see all of the things there, you can.
Right. I understand. But there is some of both in both places. There's, if you look at.
But the design guide's not really like a tutorial.
No, it's just that people are always surprised. I always find people like in the forums, for instance, who are like, "Oh, I never knew to look there. Or I never look here," and so there at least needs to be more cross-referencing.
Yes, and that's like Kattni's working on this community page as a page that gets mirrored into Learn Guide, like board Learn Guides, where it says like, oh, and if you want to dig into CircuitPython more, like here's all the places you can go: Discord, read the docs, GitHub, all that.
I mean, we might even have like a kind of proxy Learn Guide that it's just a pointer to the read the docs, so that when people search and learn, they find this thing. Okay, and it doesn't even have to be part of the community page. It's just a guide whose title is, read the docs for CircuitPython or something like that.
Sure.
And it would show up in every search.
That would be really easy to write.
And that's so easy to do, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
The guide could be a introduction to CircuitPython API guide.
Or something. Yeah, I don't know. Or we could say like, here's all the stuff that's in read the docs, because right now it's kind of read the docs there's a mix of API documentation and coding guidelines and what's in CircuitPython and where did it all come from, and there's a whole bunch of like different sections which aren't really very well explained, kind of maybe at the top level, but not in the sidebar. And maybe the Learn Guide could talk about that. So, or just, and it should be really short so that people just
Right.
say like, oh, I see. I'll just click here, and then I can read about the such and suches.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
I mean, I don't know. That sounds like good. I mean, maybe we could even have an automatically generated something using, well, the GitHub stuff is only code right now, but something that gets reflected for read the docs. So that the Learn Guide updates automatically or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I mean,
I wouldn't want the content in both places.
No. Okay.
But I see what you're.
Unless it was just a cache or something, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're pushing the boundaries. Like, Adafruit doesn't traditionally document outside of Learn.
Right. When you write a library, it's got this API. The API is explained in the Learn Guide.
Right.
So, but we now have this sort of odd boundary of like, well, some of the APIs are internal and some of them are not. And from the coder's point of view, it doesn't make a lot of difference. Like, oh, the I2C, busio.I2C is part of this, but the sensors libraries are not. So what's the difference? Well, it's just what comes with the image or something. I mean, I'm just rambling. So,
I mean, it's worth thinking about. You want to be able to get it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so maybe, Cadney, if you want to think about, if you're already making community page, if this makes sense, or I could make such a Learn Guide.
Yeah.
But
no, it makes sense. Actually, the hardest part of writing this is keeping the description, because it's supposed to, this particular part of it is supposed to be one page. So keeping the descriptions of Discord and GitHub and Read the Docs and the forums down to enough that you can kind of understand it to get there is actually the more difficult part of it.
Right.
So expanding on what I'm already doing, which really I could put it, we could just put it all together, because I think when you mirror a guide, you don't mirror the whole guide, you mirror a page, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
So I could write it all into one.
And mirror that subpage.
Yeah, and mirror, and or however we want to do it, but that's that would not be an issue, because like I said, the harder part of this is keeping it crammed into just a few sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So expanding on it will be easy.
Sounds
I
good
will
to me.
definitely still want to ping you guys, because you guys are, I mean, I was trying to scramble notes because I knew this is where it was going to go. But this is really good stuff. I mean, Dan, you claim you're rambling, but this is the kind of thing that would need to be in there. I totally agree, because that was sort of, in fact, when Scott mentioned putting it into the community guide, my first thought was, do we really want to do that? Because it really is, there's a lot to it that, and I actually managed to nail it down to a few sentences. I was pretty proud of that. But it's like, there's so much more to it that I'm glossing over, basically.
Mm-hmm.
In just writing up a little bit about it, because it is a great resource. And if you're looking for, if you're looking for coding examples, it's still a great resource, and so on and so forth. And so just to say that it's lower level API stuff, I think really underwhelms the whole concept of what it really has.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I definitely can take that on. I would love to collaborate on that too.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, well, we'll see when you finish when you get a draft of the community guide, and look at it and sort of see how it really would work in reality. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Anything else?
Yes, one more.
Okay.
Another kind of question/consistency kind of a thing. Folder layout in the libraries.
Yeah.
I've seen various approaches there too, and I'm wondering what the correct answer is. Like, for example, right now I have my Pi file in the root folder, and that's kind of the end of it. And I've seen some others where they actually have a folder named the same thing as the module kind of a deal, and then the .pi's go in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the two main ways I see being done throughout the various repos, and I'm wondering what approach we should be using.
I think it's just a matter of, like, does your library require more than one module. So like the terminology with Python is that if you have the folder, that's called the package, and then every Py file underneath that is a module. So it's just a question of like, do you need a single module or do you actually want to have multiple modules? And the kind of the impact of that decision is basically you can import on a per module basis. So if you have like a driver where you have a I2C and a SPI version, like you might want to split those up into two modules so that they can, so that the person using it can only has to import the one they're using. But I think it's
in which case you would create a folder and you would have them all in that folder.
Right.
Versus something that's very simple and is just one .py file and you're done. You could just have that exist all by itself without a subfolder.
Right. Yeah, so that's the difference between the two.
So I guess the other question is then, because some of them are pulled into the bundle in folders, like the Express class, there's only one module there. But the folder that's pulled into the bundle, like it has a folder structure.
Yes. That's because I was anticipating needing more.
Okay, and I guess I can see why that would happen, because I know when I was helping John Park with his project, that was one of the things that, because he was running everything out of root,
mm-hmm.
and had to look into changing that, and that wasn't even something that occurred to me because obviously I've dealt with it only in the folder structure, and I just never pulled it out of there. So are we still, I mean, we're still anticipating needing more. I agree that is probably the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of like next gen circuit playgrounds.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, that's the tricky part, is you have to be like, oh, do I expect to have this in the future?
Gotcha.
So, sorry, I'm watching the cat. Wasn't sure whether he was okay or not, but he looks okay. He's laying in the sun.
Oh, potential seizure.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he's good. Okay. Any others, Carter? Or anybody?
No, that's it.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up. We're an hour and 17 minutes in. Thank you all for coming, and everybody who stopped by in the middle of it. This will go up. I post the videos on YouTube, and they get pinned in the CircuitPython Discord channel soon after the fact, so that anybody who misses can do that. So thanks to everybody who's been helping out, and we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.